welcome to the Conservation Commission meeting today. Fall River, held at the Fall River Public Hearing on Monday the 3rd, 2024, 5:30 in the first floor hearing room, One Government Center, Fall River. Pursuant to the open meeting laws, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and deemed acknowledged and permissible. We'll start with roll call to my left.
Chris Boyle here.
Louis Farrar.
John Brandt.
Jim Cusick.
Paul Emerald.
Nikita Valencia.
And we also have Dan Aguirre, Conservation Agent, Patty Aguirre, Head Clerk, and Craig Salvador from FRG-TV. Okay. First on tonight's agenda is a notice of intent, SE-24-831, owner applicant Jeff Sylvia, project location 2450 Indian Town Road. Assessor's map is W-34-0012, filed by Ecosystem Solutions, Inc. on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is proposing a restoration plan to remove the unauthorized cart paths created in and around 2017 from an order of conditions from 1997 DEP file number SE-24-289. This was tabled from our May 6th meeting.
So similarly, as we've dealt with in the last few meetings, Michael Lavostier for the applicant has requested that the hearing be tabled to the July meeting. He believes they're close and should hopefully have something put together by then.
Okay. Can I have a motion to table?
Motion table?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Negative? None? Okay. All right. Next is review and discussion of updates on Bell Rock Road. This was tabled from May 6, 2024 meeting.
So just after the last meeting, I did finally get correspondence back from the attorney for the owner, and I put the quote in here. We would be looking to continue to bring in sandy fill to level and grade the site from now through August and loam and seed in September with the recommended seed mix so that it's done this year. I did not get out there myself over the last couple of weeks, but I know Chris has, and there is a concern with regards to updating and some of the erosion control, and that the gate was now open as well, so.
The erosion control, after the last heavy rainstorm, there was sedimentation, silt running across Bell Rock Road into the adjoining wetlands. It's the same issue that we've been having with them. So whatever work they did do with respect to the erosion control was inadequate for the site, so.
I can reach out to them, schedule another site visit, have them upgrade and update whatever's missing, and make sure that they stay on it and maintain it. I don't know if any additional fill had been taken or dropped off there yet, but we'll take a look at that while we're out there as well.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion to table till next month and have Dan send them an update on the erosion control?
So moved.
Second?
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Next, discussion on review and discussion adopting fee structure. Still nothing on that. So can I have a motion to table till the following
made.
month?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay. Review and discussion of 1262 Brayton Ave, tabled from May 26th meeting.
So nothing on the site, excuse me, different to update from last meeting. I did reach out to the consultant again, and again, in quotes, we have it about 80% complete, hoping to have it completed in the next few weeks for submittal to you. That's with regards to the updated site plan revisions that you had asked for previously, so I would just recommend tabling it, and we can get another update next month.
Okay, can I have a motion to table?
Motion table.
Second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Okay. Next is a request for certificate of compliance, SE-24-757. Owner applicants, Fall River Department of Community Utilities, project location 700 Wilson Road. Assessors map is Z-04-0001, filed by Wright Pierce Engineer, A Better Environment on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is requesting a certificate of compliance The Fall River construction has been completed. Substantial compliance with the plans, deviation from the plans did occur near the SMH-5. Original plans called for planting. A stone channel was implanted instead of to help the drainage and erosion control. Channel and banks were restored and stabilized.
So this actually dates back to the April meeting, ultimately. We had asked them to make some comments, some updates, some revisions. So I can offer that they have satisfactorily submitted all the revised plans that we asked for and addressed any of the outstanding concerns we have. So I would recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Okay.
Motion to approve COC?
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Alrighty. Next on the list is request for determination of accessibility -186, owner applicant Paul Furlan, location 10 Ferry Street, assessors map is N-14-0002, filed by Wright Pierce Engineer, A Better Environment on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is proposing a sewer pump station, mechanical, electrical equipment replacement of deteriorated generator house with flood-hardened house anchored to a pile foundation, installation of a bypass sewer connection to enable the work to take place outside the Fall River 25-foot riverfront area. Erosion control protection would be installed to prevent sediment from escaping the work site. This was tabled from May 6th.
Again, I believe dating back to April for the initial submission, we had a number of concerns that we asked the consultant to look at. They're still working on that with the abutting landowner. So at the request of the applicant, they've requested that the matter be tabled so that they can continue working on addressing all of our comments.
Yeah, right.
So I recommend that the item be tabled.
Can I have a motion to table?
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Next is a request for determination of accessibility -188. Applicant owner is New England Power Company. Property location is 0 North Main Street. Assessor's map is T-15-002, filed by applicant of New England Power Company. The applicant is requesting this FDA to support the Chapter 91 waterway license application being filed with the Mass DEP for N12/M13 double circuit tower separation project.
Thank you.
This is limited to small portion of the project that is subject to Chapter 91 jurisdiction. A separate NOI will be filed for the remainder of the work. This was tabled from May 6th.
So this is really a bookkeeping item. If you remember, you actually voted on this at the last meeting, but there was a question about the legal ad,
Yeah.
which hadn't been appropriately advertised. So it has been re-advertised, put back on the agenda today, basically just giving the ability for public comment, and then take another vote after that. Please note, audience and the commission, this is entirely different from the notice of intent that's been filed for the work later on in the agenda this
Right.
evening. So this just had to do with the Chapter 91 jurisdiction stuff, if you remember correctly. You can add anything you'd like.
No, that's correct. The only other thing is, yeah, this is just an RDA for the crossing of the Taunton River for the N12 and M13 transmission lines from Somerset into Fall River. And as we indicated at the last meeting, we will be submitting a separate notice of intent for the entirety of the project when we actually build the structures and lines. So you'll be seeing that sometime this year.
Okay. Anyone in the audience for this? Oh, all right. Any question, guys? Folks? Can I have a motion to issue a negative determination?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you much. Next is an enforcement order, SE-24-682 Weaver Cove Industrial Park LLC. Project location 0 North Main Street. Assessor's map is T-02-0001, filed by the city of Fall River.
So, Mr. Chairman, commission members, as you're aware, there was a wetland violation out on what you know as the Shell Oil site to the very northerly end of that, where it runs into the National Grid property where they cross the Taunton River. we had asked through an enforcement order that the applicant submit a notice of intent proposing the restoration of the area that had been altered. We did receive via email today what I think is a draft restoration and revegetation plan, which it would be my recommendation that the council really not get too deep into it or make any recommendations with regards to that until the notice of intent is submitted for the work. Notice of intent not only for the work, for the wetland delineation, gives proper abutter notification, legal advertisement, so anyone with any concern has the ability to come here and speak to you before you act. That would be my recommendation, but by all means, Attorney Nyland, if you remember, came in just missed the meeting.
Yep.
Because of traffic last time, so we're thankful that he's here tonight and early enough, so I don't think it would be inappropriate for just a quick response and acknowledging the issue and moving forward. And you can give him some direction with regards to, is a notice of intent going to be required or not?
Any questions start with the board?
No, not yet. Give him an opportunity.
So good evening, Chip Nyland on behalf of the applicant. I left at 3 o'clock today instead of at 4 o'clock, so thank you very much. When we received the enforcement order, it said to do two things. Number one was to put erosion controls down, which we did immediately, and to cease and desist, which we obviously did. And the way I read the document was to come to the commission to discuss the matter as opposed to having to file a notice of intent. So what we did was we've been out of the site. We retained a wetland consultant, Goddard Consulting LLC. They've been out to the site several times. They've confirmed that we have erosion controls. It's a pretty stable area out there, but obviously work was performed. The reason I want to come tonight was to determine whether or not you wanted to handle this under an enforcement order where we file an enforcement plan or through a notice of intent. Sometimes in commissions, they'll ask that it be done through the enforcement order process because it's a quicker process. To the extent that we go out and put together the notice of intent, delineate the wetlands, have them surveyed, it takes a little bit of time. So I thought it would be appropriate that we showed you exactly what had taken place out there, gave you a little history of the site. I think everyone knows, the history of the site, but just to remind you of it. And then to get your guidance in terms of how we proceed with either a notice of intent or through the enforcement process. Obviously, under both, you have complete control over what takes place. And for peer review or otherwise, it's up to the commission.
So please note, Attorney Nyland, as well as the commission, page 3 of 4 of the enforcement order, the box is checked where it states complete the attached notice of intent. Notice of intent shall be filed with the issuing authority on or before May 6th, 2024 for the following resource area restoration in accordance with WPA guidelines and requirements. So I think it was pretty clear in the order what was anticipated or requested by the commission. But by all means, they do have the ability to back off of that if they see fit.
I think I would like to see an NOI.
Absolutely, yeah. Mike, I do have a question, though. What's the purpose of the clearing in the first place?
So the work that was done to the north of the site was in connection with preparing for what we believe is going to be taking place with NEP on our property. NEP, with their split tower, is looking, they don't own all of the property for the tower or for the staging area. So they're going through the DPU. They've been negotiating with us with respect to using portion of that property for access and for staging for ultimate construction. So that was the work that was done. It was never intended to go on to NEP property. The individuals who were out there were supposed to stay on our property. NEP had no idea that we were doing the work. We didn't ask them to do work on their property because we didn't expect that we were going to be doing work on their property. But that's what the purpose is. There's no development scheme at this point for that area that was cleared relating to us.
So it was cleared in anticipation of an agreement with NEP?
Correct.
But there is no formal agreement with NEP at this point.
No, there is not. Those negotiations are still going forward.
So basically, the clearing was to enhance the property for the purposes of putting up another tower? Is that fair?
Well, they're gonna-
to characterize it
Yeah,
that way?
I'm not sure that we would call it enhance. I mean, it's a vacant area. It's going to be solely dedicated to the tower. There's not gonna be, housing or construction or anything
No,
else
I
around
mean
there, but-
enhanced in that to put a tower up. Because you can't put a tower up if you have, the area is forested.
It's clearly work that will need to take place in the buffer zone in order for that work to go forward, yes, yeah. But I don't want, I want to be very clear that this was not a discussion with NEP and, that we together decide this is what we're going to do. The people that went out there weren't involved with NEP, so I want to make sure that that's clear.
Was the tower footprint ever given to your client as to what it would be and the staging also?
Yes, we've seen that they're
So I guess
going.
what I'm asking, is it gonna encompass this whole area, or is there a certain area that the tower and the staging was gonna take place? Because this is a significant amount of clearing that happened here.
There's a substantial area that will be required for purposes of the tower and for staging, yes.
At that point, do we know what that is, more or less?
Well, I'm not sure that we have a plan here, but we have a pretty good idea where that is,
Just
yes.
to be clear, it's not gonna encompass the whole land that's there,
I
that
think
piece of
a
land that is cleared.
substantial portion of that, yes.
So it was, and this is generally how we do things, is that in your response, in the filing of a notice of intent, one, we ask for restoration. If there's ultimately permitting to take place, then maybe that should be included at the same time. Otherwise, you're gonna be restoring and planting trees where theoretically they may be cut down. Now,
Yes, we
your
agree.
client's the one that created this mess, so I don't know how far away you are with the power company, with how wide is this easement going to be, how much area do they need to be cleared, but that kind of should be contemplated, I would think, in your submission for a notice of intent. Because if there are permittable activities, then maybe you don't have to go through the full extent of restoration. And maybe resources can be spent restoring significant areas that need more attention, rather than just throwing down some seed and waiting for things to grow. So I can promise you, if we go through restoration, it's going to be complete restoration. It's not gonna be what you sent. So you may wanna contemplate that.
Well, that's why I wanted to come down here this
again,
evening, because there are a lot of moving parts here,
Well,
and.
there are, but right now, because that's all you've given us, is we're dealing with the restoration of the areas that were altered. Don't care who's going in there, at what point in time, or for what kind of development. Right now, we've got an altered area that needs to be restored, and that's where the commission's jurisdiction will end on this.
So our expectation would be that we would take into account what future activities there may be there after talking to New England Power. Because remember, we have activities that are taking place both on New England Power property as well as on our property. So we would, we have to decide if we're gonna have one notice of intent or two notices of intent and how we're gonna go forward.
So right now, the notice of intent is pretty much to restore the area,
Correct, correct. That's
without the contemplation of what may be coming there next.
Right, well, our intent would be to submit a notice of intent that would reflect what's gonna take place in the very near future.
Well, the commission can decide whether they feel that's appropriate or not, so.
You mean with respect to notice of intent or enforcement order? or
So
enforcement action?
we've asked for a notice of intent to be submitted. You could allow them to submit a notice of intent that includes the construction project moving forward.
But,
And then the restoration of the area is not needed for this. You know,
correct, but we can't, I don't think we should be submitting, I could be wrong, but a notice of intent for something that might happen.
Well, I
So
agree,
I-
but, no, I agree.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have to proceed, in a sound manner. So if it's something that might happen, there's no agreement as it stands right now, correct? There's no agreement with New England Power?
There is no agreement, but there's only one place to place the tower. There's only one place for the staging, so that it's going to take place. Question is, you know, what are the terms for, under which it's going to take place? That's my view.
Yeah, but that's not for the commission's concern, so.
Yeah.
I totally, what Chris is saying kind of makes sense to me. There's no agreement. It might happen, it will happen, but until you have some kind of agreement between your client and NEP, we just don't know that. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm with Chris on this one. I think we should go restoration,
And then file an amended
absolutely.
NOI.
We can amend something afterwards, because it could be, it could not be, until there's some kind of written agreement between your client, we just don't know that.
Right, we can't act on what might happen or what you
Correct.
feel will happen. We have to act on what, the facts before us.
Exactly.
So, right now, I agree, I think it's my feeling that we should note NOI for the purposes of full restoration, and then down the road, when the agreement's reached and we have all that, and all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, file an amended NOI with the tower in place. That's,
I mean, there'll be a time period associated with the restoration, so if for some reason you all resolve what's needed and you file the new notice of intent, it may preclude from having to do some of that work. But in the instance that there is no agreement and nothing goes forward for however many years, the commission has the legal ability to require that the area becomes restored.
It's understood. I think we're farther along. I think you have, I believe, filings in front of you relative to the tower. So this is not something that's going to take place in 5 or 10 or 15 years. This is something that's around the corner, so.
Yeah. Does anyone,
Was there a question?
Hi, yes, good evening, Jessica Wall, Anderson and Krieger, I represent New England Power. I just wanted to add a couple of clarifying details to what Mr. Nyland has added. So Mr. Nyland is correct, none of this work happened with NEP's knowledge or consent, as you saw from the notice letter of consent. There are discussions ongoing, between the owner of Weaver's Cove and New England Power, but we're comfortable with the restoration plan as it's been described, and we've reviewed it, and everything will happen in appropriate coordination together. I just wanted to clarify that there are not, at the moment, filings before the commission regarding the tower. That's still something that's in the works. But I think that there's probably a way forward for NEP and Weaver's Cove to continue discussion.
thank you.
we just haven't seen a restoration plan or anyone on the commission, so I think
No.
we need to proceed
I think we
carefully.
can only act on what's in front of us, what we have.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, all right, so we need the NOI from,
We have a
We're not
motion
gonna-
to
well, we-
request the filing of an NOI for the purposes of full restoration to the site.
okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote?
Aye?
Aye.
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 yes.
Aye.
All right, ready?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next on the list is request for certificate of compliance, SE twenty-four 799, owner applicants Highland Farms Development Two LLC, project location 67 Philstone Lane, Assessors Map U 04 005, filed by SciTech Inc. on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is requesting a certificate of compliance. All work has been completed in substantial compliance with the conditions.
So upon site visit, which was about a month ago, I can offer that all the work's been done in accordance with the order of conditions. Satisfactory as-built plan was submitted, as well as a letter from the engineering company, CEC Inc. So I would recommend the issuance of a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, can I have a motion for a certificate of compliance?
Motion to approve COC?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Ready? Let's see. Next on the list, a request for certificate of compliance, SE twenty-four 777. Owner applicant is AIS Real Estate Development Corporation, project locations 298 Courtney Street, U 05 0075.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so for 298 Courtney Street, it's actually almost in the same development, but out on Courtney Street. Again, this applicant has submitted the required as-built plan, engineer's letter, as well as the request for certificate of compliance. All the work has been completed in accordance with the compliance order, as well as signs have been placed, the wetland signage, everything else. So I would recommend the issuance of the certificate of compliance.
Alrighty.
Motion to issue certificate of compliance.
Second.
Second?
Aye.
All
Aye.
in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Alrighty. Let's see, next on the list is notice of intent, SE-24-839, owner applicant Russell and Cynthia Petty. Project location 66 Shannon Street. Assessors map is D-09-0089, filed by Proline Engineering, Inc. On behalf of the applicant is proposing to restore an existing dwelling and deck abandoned existing septic system, install a new septic system in accordance with Title V and city requirements, complete the utilities landscaping, including removal of existing stumps, retaining walls, steps, added grading along the rear of the property between the dwelling and the pond.
Thank you. So, Commission, this is with regards, again, to the restoration of an existing, very small house down on the South Watuppa Pond. We did actually a perk test there a few months ago, very good soil conditions, and we knew that there was a new design coming through for the septic system, proposal for connection to a public water system that's out in Spencer Street now. And there are other approvals that this project would need to go through, specifically Board of Health approval, site plan review, and possibly the Zoning Board of Appeals. I did have a couple of initial comments that I did get a chance to send over to Mr. Barraby's office today. Did you get those, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so we can run through them just quickly. And first one was, I was curious if the property had an existing waterways license for the existing structures.
I checked the registry, I didn't see any licenses
Yeah.
for it. I did see, I went on Google, and I could see that the structures, the dock, this ramp off to the side,
Yep,
were in existence in 1995,
yep,
but I didn't see anything
okay.
in the registry.
So we'll have to deal with that somewhere along the line. Again, we asked that they provide the regulated flood elevation, which you can get from Paul Furlan's office.
Okay, yeah, what I did on this was I located the high water mark on the riprap
Yep,
area, and then when I went into the FEMA site, I put that elevation, I marked it in blue on the plan, showing high water mark of South Watuppa.
yep,
And then I took the buffer from that, so this yellow line is marked 100-foot setback from South Watuppa Pond, based on.
so
the
that's
high
from
water
the,
mark. From the high water.
from the high water mark? All right,
Yeah,
so
and
riprap.
it is,
If-
the highest point is where this little finger is, where that ramp is, so that's really what, those 2 points set this 100-foot.
Okay, so that was my question, why there's not a jog in it that would
That's
mimic
why,
where the
because,
water is,
yeah,
so,
this
Okay.
governs this whole lock.
Okay.
Across the whole property.
excellent. I did have a question regarding, asking that they provide some topography along the southerly property where the retaining wall is being removed, just so that we can see how the proposed grades will then tie into
Yeah.
what's on the other side of the retaining wall.
So on this piece of property, this wall was in existence for a long time. We actually did the stakeout several years ago, and the abutters are aware that the property goes beyond this wall. I called it a retaining wall, maybe I shouldn't have called it that. All it is like a block wall about 8 inches high.
Okay,
I've got, I took a bunch of pictures out there when I started, but I only made a couple of copies, but that's it looking in, that's the wall.
sure.
So you can see it's flat from one side to the other. That's looking from the front of the house down, so this is what, I called it a retaining wall because that's what we call it. But if it's like kind of a block wall, if it's removed, it's gonna be kind of flat. They just wanted the ability to use their entire piece of property.
Understood.
to property line. This
So-
is another one.
So if we can just get the topography added to
Yeah,
the
I'll do
plan.
that. That's the back end.
Yep, I was there, understood. Then I had a question about the existing concrete slab to the south. Is that being removed or reconstructed?
On that slab, I didn't show it, I just showed it as existing, You're talking about the one down.
The southerly end.
towards the water, right?
Yep.
This is that concrete pad
And I only
right
asked
here.
what's happening with it,
They used to have, a small little shed there.
okay? Right, but my question is it staying?
No,
Only
that's
because, okay, so we need
Right,
to
so
have
I'll
that
leave
shown on the
that.
plan, and my question was because you're showing proposed grading through it, so I didn't know
Yeah.
if it was being reconstructed as well.
Yeah, I'll show that as being
Okay.
removed. And for the record, these are the owners.
Great,
Okay.
nice to meet you guys. And then lastly, with regards to the ramp to the north, I'm assuming that's the existing riprap,
Yes, it is, and that's staying, right?
that's staying?
Yeah.
Because it looks like,
That grading.
because
that
we're
show-
regrading through it, but it'll
Yeah.
be modified, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we can talk about that on the limits of the grading. I put it through because it's kind of like a sheer wall, so we're really gonna just grade to it. We're not gonna disturb it. I just tie it in to the other property, so I can adjust
Right, so again,
the
if we get
grading.
topography over the property line, so that we can, like, for instance, the proposed 136 contour,
Yep,
if we look to the northerly property boundary, we're at an elevation of 133.5.
yep,
So we have to make sure that we can tie into the abutting properties.
yeah.
And the concern would be whatever filling the commission looks at through this area to make sure that no additional runoff is being directed to either abutter, and that runoff is still heading directly to the pond.
Yeah, this is, looking at, this is standing in the back of the property.
Yep.
And I'll do the topo, but you can see here, this is the wall coming in.
Yep, so these are
from
the
down
steps.
here, yeah.
that you
And
see
that's
here in
the
the middle.
steps, yeah. So, and the budding property is back here.
Yep.
So it's up higher than where we are. This is that slab you just spoke about.
Okay.
So that'll be removed, but it's definitely, our property is lower than both sides, but I'll show that. with the
And we
topo.
wanna make sure it stays low.
Yep.
So, that's all I had. So if we get some revised plans, then I think the commission will have the information they need to act at the next hearing. And again, there's other permitting with the Board of Health and through site plan review, but as far as conservation jurisdiction, I think this covers you.
Dan, did you say there's a potential for this to go to the ZBA?
Yeah, so there are proposed reconstructions with regards to the dwelling. The deck, for instance, the building department may or may not determine, because there's no deck there now. There's a couple of cinder
Just
block
remnants.
columns with like one center timber that's rotted, no outside timber, so the building department may look at the deck as needing a new permit, not grandfathered, because there is no structure there, so that may need some type of zoning relief, which again, not the commission's jurisdiction.
And I think we discussed this last meeting, but the existing dwelling is gonna be a one-bedroom, it's gonna stay.
That's
the perimeter
correct.
of the foundation's gonna stay the same and all
That's
that.
correct, yep, and that's before the Board of Health, so again, other approvals before the commission.
And I think, last question is, on the north side, where you have the septic tank in front of the house,
Mhm.
there's a slope going down to the abutter. Is that gonna stay like that, or?
Yeah.
I believe there is a slope going down.
So there's really no or very little proposed grading over the septic system, just along the southerly abutter,
Yeah.
and does not extend anywhere near the property line. So there's not much proposed grade change in the front yard at all.
And that front change you talked about, Dan, is really cutting down on the slope, so I get my maximum 3 feet of cover over the field, because I'm going against the grain, putting the system in to keep it away from the resource area. So I come in off the house, keeping everything at a minimum, and then that little corner up on the southwest end is over 3 feet of cover. Title V says 1 to 3 feet of cover, so I'm actually shaving it down a little bit just to maintain that 3 feet.
So Bob, when you do make the revisions,
Yep.
and I'm just noticing this now, look at your proposed 147 contours off of the house. They're
Okay.
connecting to contour 145 around the tank. So just
Yeah.
make sure we've got the grading done correctly in the front yard.
Yeah.
Although most of it'll be out of the buffer zone, but we're gonna ask for that for the Board of Health anyway.
Okay,
You see what I'm talking about?
yeah, okay, yep, yeah, it should be 145. And now, the one other thing, where you mentioned the topography, I think number 5, proposed grading seems excessive. So I know the topo will show that we're not going to a budding piece of the property.
Yep.
kind of put it in a 5-to-1 slope. I could
Yeah.
cut it back more, 3
Well,
to 1.
Again, this is just my opinion, that we're putting a lot of fill in this backyard, and I understand why, because we're getting rid of the retaining wall, getting rid of the
Correct,
steps.
yeah, yeah.
However, the commission needs to understand that, you know, this is a lot of fill going adjacent to the water.
Sure.
But when we look at flood elevations and all those things, when we get that information, then the commission can make the determination of, is it excessive, you know, in their minds.
Okay.
But let's check off all the boxes first, that we're not adding water to abutting properties, you know, and we'll allow you to give
Yeah.
your explanation of why we need that amount of fill.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Audience.
Anyone out there?
Anybody here to speak in favor or in opposition to this?
Nope. Okay. So can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a notice of intent, SC-24-838, owner BBC Realty Holding LLC. Applicant is Bristol Tape Corp., 500 Innovation Way. Census map is W-19-0187, filed by Zenith Consulting Engineer LLC on behalf of applicant. The applicant is proposing construction of industrial building, associated tree clearing, parking, utility grading, and drainage and landscape.
Before we get started, do you have your legal ad and green cards?
I do. Well, I have a copy of them, photocopy. Green cards and the return slip.
Okay. So, Commission, I did review the plans, did do a site walk. Let's start with, again, other approving authorities beyond the Conservation Commission being site plan review, as well as the redevelopment authority. The redevelopment authority has specific rules and regulations with regards to development in this part of the industrial park along Innovation Way. So there are other permitting hurdles beyond this. I've kept my scope to what's in your jurisdiction with regards to Wetlands Protection Act. First, I want to say that the submission was very well done, very complete. Checks just about every box that we could ask for information. Historically, just so that you're aware, the wetlands line that's shown on this plan was approved in 2023 through an ORAD issued by the commission. For orientation purposes, this is directly across the street from the Ice Cube building that just got built, the Raw Seafoods building, right on Innovation Way. Directly across the street. There are two wetland areas. I won't take the whole presentation. I'll let
I
you
don't
get to
mind.
that. But what I did do, again, I gave an initial review of the plans that were submitted. I did send that to Zenith today, so we will be most likely asking that this matter be tabled to allow them time to address some of our comments, mostly drainage related, which I don't think you want to get bogged down with. I think the applicant understands that they have a few things to address with regards to drainage calculations primarily. But I think we should get a presentation and then we can move from there.
Sure.
Thanks.
My name is Tom Morris with Zenith Consulting Engineers. So as Dan just said, our site is right here. That freezer building is this cleared area. So it is directly across the street. When we look at the existing site, we have a wetland up at the street, which we've witnessed to hold some water for long periods of time. If it were to overtop, which we didn't see any signs of, it would come across a path that exists right here, and it would come down to the back wetland. The back wetland takes up quite a bit of the area down here, and you can see everything slopes down this way. This wetland up here is 13 feet above the wetland up here. All the soils that we found, groundwater was around 3 feet. It was fairly tight soils. So the groundwater is just kind of riding right up the hill. What we are proposing is a building for manufacturing and warehousing, basically, of materials for Bristol Corp, Bristol Tape Corp. The building here in the center has 2 loading ramps that are going to be covered that pitch down to a loading dock. One here in the back, one here in the front. We have parking coming in, an access road around the back of the building, and we have, you'll see on the grading plan on the next sheet, we have a basin that is split into 2 cells with a couple retaining walls to hold the grade. So the basin that we are proposing is a constructed stormwater wetland, a pocket wetland specifically. And what that means is there's going to be a permanent pool of water within the basin, and this helps to provide a high level of treatment to the runoff, better than just a typical dry detention basin. There's wetland species that are planted in the basin to help filter out nutrients and TSS. An additional step we had to take with this plan because of the redevelopment authority was meeting a heightened TSS removal. And how we did that was add in the drain manholes right before it comes into the basin, our first defense units, water quality units. And that will separate their specs. They're certified to give us 50% TSS removal prior to the basin, which gives us 80%. In all likelihood, the TSS removal in those first defense units will be higher than that, but 50% is all we're allowed for the credit. So to show you kind of what's within the jurisdiction, I should have highlighted it here, I'm sorry. The 100-foot buffer runs right through here, and then from the small wetland up front, it runs right through here. So a good portion of the building and kind of the back corner and front and the access drive right here of the parking lot are within the 100-foot buffer. We have maintained the 25-foot no touch to both wetlands. Oh, and actually, while I'm on the grading plan, one of Dan's comments was about the fact that we have a pipe that a drainage pipe that comes into this upper wetland, and he just wanted to make sure that we're not impeding any flow. And I just want to say that what we're doing here for grading is we're cutting the grade on the high side up here. So if anything were to spill over in the existing condition, it will still spill over. And it'll actually end up coming through our basin rather than going directly into the next wetland. So it would receive some further treatment. That's just utilities, landscaping, erosion controls. So the downslope limit of all of the work, we are proposing a silt sock. Up here, we're not proposing anything because, as I said, we're just cutting, so there's no chance of any runoff getting to the wetland from our work. We're providing an anti-tracking pad at the entrance where all the vehicles will come in and out. We're gonna be providing silt socks in all the catch basins. And then the two catch basins which are down gradient of us on Innovation Way, we're gonna put silt socks in there too, just in case there is some carryover silt through the tracking pad. That's about it for that. It's fairly simple. And we have some details, but probably don't wanna go over anything with that right now. Any questions?
Looks pretty good.
What are the dimensions of the tracking pad? How long is that?
It's 50 foot.
Okay.
And I think that's shown on the detail, on the next page. Should be. Yeah, 50 foot minimum.
Okay.
So do we have a motion? Audience
We don't have
first?
a motion.
Audience.
Yeah, any
Oh, sorry.
questions,
Dan, would you like
Okay.
to discuss the comments?
No, I
Or-
mean, you and I find these things exciting, but I don't think anybody else does.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's anything that can't be
Yeah,
addressed ultimately.
and nothing pertinent to the limit of work.
No, limit of work, no, not at all.
all right, so, a motion to table?
Nope, you gotta ask audience
Oh,
again.
sorry about that. Anyone in the audience? Okay.
I just have one quick question. The
Mhm.
suspended solids, that's something that requires regular ongoing maintenance, right? Or is it-
Correct, yeah, and we do have an O&M plan written up in the drainage report.
Yep.
And that'll be part of what's required moving forward, once it's completed, the construction.
Other than that, looks like the topology that you were given here, you did a good job for what you had.
A little tough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not an easy site. You don't often
it's
have a
not
wetland
easy.
up gradient from your site to deal with, so. No, like I said initially, the application was very complete, and did include a very extensive operation and maintenance plan, which is something we don't usually get till the end, and we're dragging it out of people, so. Very well done. And I think once we get past these comments, these are also gonna be same comments that go out through site plan review as well, for drainage review.
I'll make a motion to approve NOI.
We're gonna
We're
table
gonna table.
Oh, we're tabling it. Oh,
Table.
'cause it's-
until we get this information.
Okay.
So
Motion to table.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
I did get comments in today from DCU, who reviews everything as well.
Yep.
So now tomorrow I'll send out one complete set of comments.
Perfect.
They had some comments about water, sewer, that kind of stuff, so.
Okay.
Get that out there tomorrow, and hopefully you guys get it back in and get wrapped up for the next meeting.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next is request for determination of accessibility of -189, City of Fall River, Paul Furlan is, owners of, Browning Ferris Industry, Keith Lincoln, Spartan BSMS Holding LLC, LIT, Fall River LLC, Millstone, Medical Outsourcing Real Estate, 2 LLC, Crown Commercial Properties LLC, property location is NS and the Commerce Drive, 633 Commerce Drive, 1080 Airport Road. Assessors map is Z-00-0015, Z-0005, Z-03-0033, and Z-05-0601, and W-190183, and Z-05-006, and the last one is Z-05-0602, filed by LLC, Environmental Consultant Inc. on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is proposing to place existing 12-inch diameter sewer main and 18-inch diameter sewer main.
We'll let you guys have at it.
All right.
Yeah.
We do have a copy of the legal ad, so that's been satisfied.
For the record, Claire Hogaboam, wetland scientist with LEC Environmental Consultants. Joining me is Dan Scott with Woodard and Curran, the engineer on the project. We're here requesting a negative determination for the sewer interceptor replacement project. It's located between the Fall River landfill and Route 24. Dan's just putting up the sort of overall site plan there now. But essentially, the project involves replacement of a critical sewer interceptor. As noted in the introduction there, it is existing 12-inch diameter asbestos concrete sewer line. It'll be replaced with an 18-inch diameter PVC. And that's in order to replace the, degraded, deteriorated pipe that Dan Scott will go into more detail on. But the project itself will result in temporary disturbance to bordering vegetated wetlands, bank to intermittent streams, and partially some bank to Mother's Brook, which is a perennial stream. Land underwater as it extends within Mother's Brook as well. It'll result in temporary impacts to the 25-foot riverfront area and buffer zone. We are requesting a negative determination as the project is considered exempt under 310 CMR 10.02. It's replacement of an existing sewer infrastructure and which is used in the service of the public. And the project has been designed to utilize best management practices during and after construction in order to protect the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. So with that, I will just pass things off to Dan to talk a bit more about the project itself.
Great. My name's Dan Scott from Woodard and Curran. We're working with the city on this project for a little while for the replacement of this critical sewer line. This section runs through Mother's Brook from Riggenbach down underneath 24 and goes behind the Four Wind Apartments before going down the railroad alignment over here. So most of our work that we're presenting and asking for an RDA on is located behind Amazon right here. This line carries about 500,000 to 1 million gallons per day. It's very susceptible to corrosion. There's leachate that comes from the landfill and enters this pipe. Asbestos cement, it's not like your typical reinforced concrete. The asbestos is mixed with the cement, and it is very susceptible to corrosion. That's the only reinforcement for these pipes. They've replaced everything upstream of our project area with PVC when they did some modifications on the landfill, but these pipes remain. There's been 2 failures over the past year. So me and Paul talked, and we decided it was in the best interest of the public to get this fixed as soon as we could, because between permitting and design, we were probably still going to be at least a year away from actually constructing this, along with getting funding. So that's why we're here tonight, is to talk with you about getting this project done in an expeditious manner, but doing it the right way.
I have a quick question. So you said that leachate from the landfill is infiltrating the pipe?
It's an approved discharge,
Okay.
but it's acidic in nature,
Mhm.
or corrosive in nature. The acidity is pretty neutral, but it still corrodes pipes a lot.
Okay.
So our project is from right to the edge of Route 24 and then right to here. From here back is all PVC after where the leachate enters. Access for the construction will be from the main entrance of the landfill. They'll likely traverse up through here and then enter the site through an opening right here. Our project is set up in a way to allow for variance in the scope of work, because we don't know how the pricing is going to come in. So you'll see on the plans there's a base bid and an alternate base bid. So the base bid is going to be from the opening here in the landfill down all the way to 24. And then the alternate bid would be from right here back towards that entrance, that opening. The reason why we do this is it allows the city to either just move forward with the base bid work, or they can do the bid alternate and be able to do more work if the pricing falls within their budget.
Now, on this, are you gonna use PVC or is it gonna be?
Yeah, it'll be replaced with 18-inch PVC. The reason why we're upgrading the pipe size is because we did a capacity analysis, and we're expecting between
they would
half
have,
million
yeah.
up to 1 million gallons
So
of
they have a good
potential
show
new flows from the development that could happen over on Innovation Way. So we did modeling, and that was, the result was, we did flow metering to inform the modeling, and that was the conclusion.
Dan, can you explain to the commission how you set up bypass and how that works during construction?
Sure. So our plan right now, this is means and methods by the contractor, but the likely thing that they would do is they would pull flows from the upstream limits of work, and then they discharge it past the downstream limits. These pipes are in very poor condition, and sending a bunch of flow in would not be advisable into these pipes that are very fragile. So the plan is to run it underneath the highway through the culvert and discharge the first manhole that's right after you get past the embankment on the other side of the highway. They could do other things too. Once they get to the alternate bid, they could discharge to the new line here if they wanted to, once they finish that construction. But the idea is to make sure that they're discharging into a pipe that's in decently sound condition. This pipe all down here is RCP, which has larger reinforcement steel in it. So that, we've TV'd that, and that's in good condition.
How long would this project take?
When they did their emergency repair, it was only a few hundred feet, it was about 300 feet of pipe, and it took them 2 weeks to complete. Or, I can't remember what the contract, it was either 2 weeks, between 2 weeks and a month. And there was clearing that was done, so that took a significant amount of time. And then just dealing with the groundwater is gonna be a big problem. We walked the site, and the groundwater table is pretty much at surface, so we're right next to the brook.
Board have any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
Just for my own clarification, with the base bid, that hypothetically, if only the base bid gets approved, there will still be that asbestos pipe going from the C 102 area?
Yeah, so like basically it's like 1,900 linear feet of pipe we're replacing for the full scope, and it would be about like 700 for this critical section that we need to get fixed, and then it would be about another 1,100 for that section. But given the track record of how many collapses there have been here recently, we feel like this
That's the
is.
most prevalent.
Yeah, what I forgot to mention is there's another leachate that enters here. So there's one about here, and then there's one here. So there's two effluent leachates from the landfill.
Paul, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So this RDA, and through you, Mr. Chair, are they seeking a negative determination on this?
Yes.
So what that would mean is throughout this whole project, it would not fall under this commission for anything to come back and update us or anything like that. Is that correct?
Well, so you're just making the determination that a notice of intent is not required because of the exemption. Through the exemption, it could almost be narrated that an RDA isn't even needed to be filed. But what this has given us the ability to acknowledge it, understand what's happening, and watch it as it goes.
The exemption here, under 310 CRM 10.2, it says, maintain, repair, replace, but not substantially change or enlarge. In this case, we're going from 12 inches to 18 inches, so, isn't that an enlargement?
So we had this discussion, we discussed this exemption at length. And I think what we determined was that when we talk about the enlargement, the amount of area to be disturbed, which is really your concern with regards to wetland impact, would be the same whether it's a 12-inch pipe or an 18-inch pipe. So the fact that they're enlarging the pipe really has nothing to do with the amount of resource area alteration or impacts that the commission should be concerned with. While they're going in and replacing the pipe, they're taking it to the next step and putting in the 18-inch. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So if they only do the one section now, that will allow them, when they do the next section, to add the 18. When you did the remainder of the the upstream work, what
That's gonna be a
size?
separate phase.
Right,
Oh,
but the one that's already been made PVC.
they put in a 24-inch.
So that's a
They
20 so-
wanted to be conservative.
So we're already,
They-
so now, we're you would probably almost want it to be 24 to go the whole way, right? Because we've got a 24 upstream. So in 18, we'll get them a little bit more capacity, but with regards to the exemption, we had determined that, or at least our interpretation was that because of the scope of work and the size of the alteration, that would not qualify as larger.
So you're saying no matter if it's a 12-inch or an 18-inch, the scope of work or the area of work is gonna be the same?
Correct.
That's
I'm
right.
just a little
Correct.
concerned because it looks like from what I read in the report, there's gonna be about 69,000 square feet impacted. Is that correct?
Temporary impacts, yes.
Temporarily impacted, and, you know, that's something that we're not gonna oversee. I know there's gonna be some restoration going and
Yep.
taking place.
Yep.
So I'm just a little bit concerned of, you know, once it leaves us here,
Yep.
what happens with that impacted 69,000 square foot of, BVW that's gonna be, you know, impacted, so
Right,
that's
so
my
it's,
concern.
again, the sewer is there, so the sewer was already installed, through this area. With regards to what ultimately comes back, it will restore itself. And there may be other permitting authorities yet that they need to go through. Did we ever get that clarified with?
Army
the Army
Corps,
Corps?
we have
Where
not
we were at
gotten an
with that?
answer from them. I reached
Okay.
out to them about a week and a half ago, so I
So
owe
there's
them a
still,
follow-up.
there's still one other. But, again, the exemption is there for a reason. And it is for utilities. If there was no existing sewer line there, of course, they would go through the full notice of intent, full restoration. But these are areas that are intended to be maintained when needed, and whatever resource areas get, and under the initial permitting, get altered as part of it, is what happens.
No, and I understand what you're saying about the scope of the work, if it's a 12 or 18, but, I mean, like I said, on a 310 CRM 10, 2, it does say not substantially change or enlarge, so that's where I was going by, and it's a significant amount of work that's gonna take place, that was just my concern.
Yep, absolutely. Again, I said it again, I don't vote, so.
Okay. Anyone in the audience for this?
Yeah, one question. You had mentioned groundwater and that you might have to contend or deal with it. Is there a plan for such? Is there an anticipation they have to pump and discharge the groundwater itself?
You're gonna have to de-water the site?
Dewatering, yeah.
Yes,
You
there's gonna
are.
be extensive dewatering.
And where is, when you do the dewatering, where is that gonna be pumped to? Where are you gonna put, when you dewater, where's that flow gonna go? To?
Back into the stream.
Into Mother's Brook? Is there any concern with soil conditions or contaminants in the soil? Because you are adjacent to the landfill.
Well, the groundwater's the groundwater.
Right.
So if it's
It's gonna get-
contaminated when they're pumping it out, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's gonna get to the stream.
it's still there,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh,
It's
there's-
not-
there's
You're not
contamin-
introducing a new water source.
There's
but,
contamination all
We've
over.
done soil borings, there was no
Yep.
obvious evidence of any contamination
Okay, perfect.
that was observed. We've done research to make sure there's no sites of interest
Okay.
in the vicinity. There was none.
Right now, we have failed sewer pipe.
Yeah, that's gotta be
And
fixed.
the plans do include some details for dewatering and the filter bag that the water will be discharged to, surrounded by straw wattles. And I think we included a note as well, just to keep it at a fair distance from any streams, whether it's Mother's Brook or any of the intermittent streams, so we don't have discharge immediately going to the stream. It has a chance to sort of dissipate before it gets to the streams.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So can I have a motion for a negative determination?
Motion.
Have a second?
Aye.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, how about we do roll call vote on this one? Chris?
Aye.
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 No?
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks. Next one is a notice of intent, SE-24. We don't have a file.
No, still no file number.
Okay. Applicant is owner of New England Power Company, existing overhead transmission line, ROW, assessors map, multiple locations, assisting ROWS easement filed by Power Engineer Consulting on PC on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is proposing construction of approximately 4.2 miles of new 115 kV overhead electric transmission line within existing right-of-way between Fall River Municipal border and Dartmouth near Collins Corner Road and existing Bell Rock substation in Fall River.
I'm Eileen Piscura, representing National Grid. So as you just said, they're proposing to construct, operate, and maintain approximately 4.2 miles of new 115 kV transmission line along their existing right-of-way in Fall River. This is part of a larger project that includes additional transmission line mileage through Acushnet, New Bedford, and Dartmouth, and that portion of the project will be constructed and operated by Eversource. This project will address needs identified by ISO New England for additional transmission capacity in southeastern Mass, and the project has gone through the MEPA process and received a certificate from the Secretary in August 2023. Through the planning and design process, wetland impacts have been minimized to the extent practicable, but some impacts were not able to be avoided. The project was also designed to meet the general performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act, but is eligible as a limited project. The temporary wetland impacts will occur from installation of construction matting for work pads, wire stringing and pole sites, and access to structures. Permanent wetland impacts will result from installation of new transmission line structures within wetland resources. And there will be tree removal required along the right-of-way to accommodate the new line. National Grid intends to mitigate for all of the temporary and permanent impacts. There are approximately 54 square feet of proposed permanent impact required for the installation of new structures, and to offset that, National Grid is proposing to utilize the over design at the Bell Rock substation from that rebuild project. For that project, National Grid had designed a wetland replication area of approximately 5,520 square feet to offset 4,244 square feet of permanent impacts, with an over design of 1,276 square feet. The wetland replication area is located in the same watershed as the proposed permanent impacts and provides similar aquatic resource functions within that watershed. And National Grid discussed this strategy with both the Commission and Mass DEP in January of 2023, and both agencies were receptive to that approach. There has been ongoing monitoring of that Bell Rock mitigation site, and the restoration has been successful with the establishment of typical wetland plants, hydrology, and soil conditions, and there's evidence of animals using the area. All of the temporary impacts to wetlands will be restored. Construction matting and erosion and sediment controls will be removed at the end of the project, and wetlands will be restored to pre-construction contours to the extent practicable. National Grid's also proposing enhancement plantings of low-growth shrubs along the northern edge of the Copacut Reservoir, where tree removal is proposed. These plantings will supplement the expected regrowth of the existing shrubs, but will provide an immediate vegetation buffer to the reservoir. And National Grid selected species that would meet the mitigation expectations and also minimize right-of-way maintenance conflicts in the future. There are natural heritage areas along the right-of-way in Fall River, and National Grid is actively engaging with natural heritage to develop mitigation measures for those species occurring within the right-of-way. These best management practices will include, at a minimum, training for personnel, signage, pre-construction sweeps that will be implemented during the construction. National Grid also has an extensive best management practice manual and requires all of its contractors to adhere to those standards. That includes utilizing erosion and sediment controls to protect wetlands and water resources, dewatering protocols, etc. They're also expecting to implement a wetland invasive species control plan to minimize the spread of invasives in wetlands where they already occur and to prevent further spread. And finally, National Grid will utilize an environmental monitor through the entire construction process to ensure compliance with all permit conditions and to document restoration efforts. And I am happy to take any questions.
So, Mr. Chair, and Commission members, you'll see it in my notes, this is a big project.
Yeah.
We only got it 2 weeks ago. It's gonna take some time to chew on this. We still don't have a file number. We would wanna see what comments Natural Heritage has with regards to the moving the project forward. I do know that there are a number of abutters who have concerns about that, which we can't take testimony on this evening, if anybody is here with regards to that. So it'll also be my recommendation that we table the matter for at least a month, so that we can get out there, take a look at these things, look at the resource areas, look at the proposals. Doesn't seem anything out of the ordinary for this type of work, but this type of work does have a great impact.
Yeah.
What's the square footage of tree clearing that will take place through this 4.2-mile corridor? I mean,
Sure that we
is it
have
50
that.
feet in width the whole way, 100 feet in width
Yeah, about 50 feet in width.
for the whole 4.2? Okay. So I understand it's a lot to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's been a NEPA study, but there are, obviously there are, and you're working with National Heritage, and they've been through the site.
Yep.
So when if you happen to encounter a vernal pool, for instance, that's right in your right-of-way, how's that gonna be handled with?
We did survey for vernal pools, and they're marked on the maps where they occur
What time of year was the survey done?
in the spring,
Okay,
during the breeding season.
okay.
They would use erosion controls
Mhm.
to prevent any sedimentation from going into the vernal pool.
Mhm.
We would treat it mostly like a wetland
Okay.
and protect it like a wetland.
Just because it's also impacted by loss of overstory to vernal pools. So you're gonna be you're protecting it from sedimentation, but you're removing the canopy.
Shading characteristics.
Shading
So,
characteristics
yeah.
in the canopy. In essence, it's a nice effort, but it's not gonna be effective in my opinion, but.
I'm not sure that there is a vernal pool that's directly
Okay, I'm just
impacted by that.
pointing out, you have to clear it, I get it.
Yep.
But minimizing impacts, you can't minimize some impacts to some vernal pools. If you're gonna
True.
be removing the canopy and that shade feature.
How far along are you with NAGSP? Have you been close, or?
I'd say middle of the project. We've established which species need a CMP, which species will just have best management practices assigned to them. So we're working through that process right now.
Okay. Any idea when you think it'll be completed?
Hoping by the fall.
Okay. So you may not get your answers quickly.
No, I know, they were never quick answers.
Yeah, no, I know. Sometimes it's good to get those first before we come here. I don't have anything else to add for the time being.
Already.
I don't know if there's anybody in the audience here. that
Well,
wants to
is
speak.
there anybody?
We do have a citizen.
Can you just state your name and address then?
Yep, Sarah Riley, 1679 Copacut Road. I'm with the Copacut Neighborhood Association. And I represent a very small group, but you represent a very large one. The Copacut Reservoir sources water to over 100,000 people in Fall River and surrounding towns. I'm gonna try to be as concise as possible, so I have forward specifics as far as the FSB evidentiary testimony to Chris Boyle and to Dan Aguirre. It is up to 19% annually of our drinking water supply, the Copacut Reservoir. And those are recent statistics from the Water Department. The location of National Grid's construction at the confluence of the Copacut River, it has the potential to disrupt regionally the integrity of the water quality. National Grid has no intention of baseline water quality testing, nor does it intend to guarantee continued safe water quality through construction or beyond. They have no plans for wetland replications in that area because they have over-replicated at Bell Rock substation. They are planning on tree clearing along 500 feet of watershed and vulnerable wetlands along the reservoir. And while they have extensive native revegetation plans, it is insufficient because they haven't considered whether or not we can police the areas to prevent the new plantings from being able to be maintained and not trampled by seasonal fishing. And opening up public access, this plan is tantamount to opening up a beach on the Copacut Reservoir. We're gonna have more illegal trail clearing than we've already seen. Fireworks adjacent to the reservoir, illegal fires, off-roading, quads, trucks, dirt bikes, all that type of activity. And the tree clearing that we were talking on the line, it's not 50 feet, it's 70 feet south of the line. And at the area of the wetland confluence at the Copacut River, it's 60 feet north of the culvert and 60 feet south of the culvert, which I've already given you guys some information about the culvert and the instability of the culvert. I won't get into that at this point in time. But it merits serious discussion whether or not the culvert can even maintain the amount of construction that they're talking about with 60 tons of trucks, fellow bunchers parked right over the culvert that's in question. And we haven't even determined whether or not it's RD 4020 rated. We don't know the rating currently. In my spare time, I clean up garbage. We already have a major pollution issue in the Copacut Reservoir. We have open access because of fishing. When we opened access with fishing, we actually didn't have a plan for mitigating the public access. So I did bring with me today, I only brought the bobbers, but this is what I've collected out of our drinking water supply over the last year. Okay, that's just the bobbers. That's not the tires or the litter and the waste. And I can't even, with car dashboards and all manners of things that I've pulled out of the water. Opening access, again, is gonna create more of a pollution issue. And if we don't have a management plan in terms of environmental policing, we're gonna see a whole lot more damage in terms of water quality for our drinking water. We used to have 5 environmental police officers. We now only have 2. And we have insufficient police vehicles in order to access and maintain and prevent illegal access on the lines, especially if we're essentially opening up the beach to the reservoir. Again, they do have a revegetation plan in place, but who is there to prevent that area from being damaged just with foot traffic alone? People go out there all the time and cut out trees. You used to not be able to crawl through those areas on the north side of the reservoir, and now there's open access paths that are 6 feet wide and beyond that go all the way along the whole northern part of the reservoir. We have insufficient policing to manage that area if we're opening up further access. The Energy Facility Siting Board has not yet ruled on this project. I believe that it's premature for our Conservation Commission to preemptively sign off on it. So I would encourage you guys to table it for the time being and wait to see what EFSB rules in terms of what their determination is and what mitigation factors that they are putting in place for National Grid. And then we should determine ours based on that, I think. I hope that you guys will consider me a resource and an ally going forward. We all have the same intentions of maintaining water quality and the integrity of our infrastructure and communities. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the input. Does anybody on the board have any questions for her? Or?
I think we have somebody else.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. My name's Erin Worski. I'm from National Grid. I'm the environmental scientist on this project. There was a couple of misrepresentations that I just wanted to clarify. So for tree clearing, it's about 37.5 acres of tree clearing, and that's 62 feet along that 4.2 2-mile stretch. It's along the southern portion of the right-of-way. There was a question about where we stand with natural heritage. We have filed the draft conservation management plan with Natural Heritage under review currently. As far as the timing goes, I'm not exactly sure. I think fall might be like a realistic timing as to when that approval does come through. There was a question about the enhancement plans that we have put forth around the Copacut. We do intend to have a 2-year monitoring program for that to ensure the vitality of those plants. And any sort of unauthorized access, we've been working with the city quite frequently to meet to place gates and guardrails in select locations. We've been working specifically with Mike Labossiere and the fire chief. The names are escaping me, I apologize.
We have a new one now.
Okay.
Bacon is the new one.
And so we've been communicating with them on their ideas and kind of taking their recommendations and coming up with a game plan for trying to restrict access into that area, because we do understand that it is a prime public water supply. And then as far as the culvert integrity over Quantico Road, there is, we intend to be placing steel plates, which is kind of a standard BMP for any sort of road crossing like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Any questions?
Any of the trails you had mentioned, are they legal or illegal? Okay.
None of them are legal. No. The only legal trails, I believe, are in the lot 2 that's about, 3/4 of a mile further south from that, along the north edge of the reservoir, and certainly not along. There is the Fire Reserve Loop Trail that passes near that area, but not along the water's edge.
Okay.
Okay. So can I have a motion to table?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Aye.
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 Alrighty. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Both
for your
were
time.
Thank you.
Next, we have cease and desist, 2089 Blossom Road.
So, Mr. Chairman, we had received a few complaints over the last few months regarding work taking place at 2089 Blossom Road. I know there were some issues and concerns that the building department had been working on, and then we had been called out at numerous times to look at potential violations. So I did go visit the site. There was activity taking place within, most likely, the buffer zone to a resource area. You had issued an order of conditions for this property a number of years ago with the replacement of a septic system and allowing some wetland areas to restore. I don't believe that was ever closed out. So I did send out a letter to the landowners advising them to hire a consultant and put together some type of a proposal for proposed activities and proposed restoration areas if there are any. They would need to have the wetlands lines delineated, look at the old filings, what was required to remain as no activity zones, because there were some, and put together a submission to come back to you.
Okay.
So I am thankful that they have come to the office immediately, and again, they're here tonight, which we will get to.
Yeah, we have.
Just state your name and
Yeah, my name
address.
is Naomi Abad. Your name? Tu nombre?
Carlos Abad.
Yeah, it was a hard time to find an engineer to work in the project, but we get in touch with one today.
Okay.
And he said that he's gonna take charge of the
Okay.
project.
Good.
And I don't know how long gonna take. He said maybe 5 to 10 weeks
Okay.
till he came with a plan.
Yeah.
But we don't know yet.
Well, but we thank you for coming in, so that the commission knows that you've acknowledged it. Have the consultant call me.
Yeah, that's fine.
'cause
I
we
didn't
have-
know
because we have all of the
land
records.
already have an issue before.
Okay.
Now that you mention now, because
Yeah.
I didn't know, I was not aware of that
Yeah,
before.
so there's all kinds of plans, documents, shows where the wetlands line were historically,
Okay.
what areas were supposed to remain, areas that were supposed to be revegetated along the water department land to the south of you. There's all kinds of past history here, which, and again, these are new owners to the property.
Okay.
So they've bought into or have inherited this past history and mess.
Ya,
that,
pero la casa ya
kind
tenía
of gets
problemas
lopped on
anteriormente.
top of the activities that were taking place there now, so
Alrighty,
that would be it.
that's good.
So just keep us in the loop. Have the engineer again reach out, let us
Okay.
know, when he thinks he's gonna be ready, when he wants to come in and get copies of the existing information.
Okay.
We can provide that all to them.
And I can get some copy for
Absolutely,
myself?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We
I
can get
will.
copies of everything that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
You're going in the right direction.
Thank
The
you.
house looks great.
Thank
You're
you
doing
for
a good
coming
job.
in.
Yeah, thank you.
I have all the neighbors that say, look great.
Yeah, it does look fantastic.
Thank you.
See, next is a discussion of 221 Fieldstone Lane enforcement. Is anybody here for that one?
Good evening, and thank you for accommodating us. My name is Brian Butler from Oxbow Associates. Kenny Mata from Field Engineering, CE is here, and Mr. Paul Greenberg, the owner of the property, is also here. I've had a little dialogue with Dan on this matter. It's been protracted. It was an enforcement order issued quite a while ago now. And Mr. Greenberg contacted, it's a long story, but we're in arrears, if you will. Part of that's my responsibility, just being, Paul engaged me quite a while ago. I've been just crazy, insane busy with project obligations. Kenny and I have conferred on this, so I've gone to the site, and essentially, try to be brief at respecting the commission's time. This is the Highlands Farms subdivision that you're probably all very familiar with.
Oh,
You have
yes.
at least one certificate. That's 221, which was formerly Lot 9. And this is an overlay of the plan on the aerial, just for context, because I think it's a little more forthcoming. I feel a little bit Neanderthal even having a plan nowadays, it seems like everything's digital, but, so the house was approved under an order of conditions 024, 074, I think, 764, in July 2021. The house was built, more, essentially per the plan. I think it's slightly small, the actual living space is slightly smaller. Mr. Greenberg undertook in the course of the construction to build this patio, which was not approved on the original plan. The patio is entirely within the approved limit of work, but it's a physical structure, a 3D structure. It's about yay high. But with this little jacuzzi pad, it's about 1,665 square feet in area. It has pervious beds on the outer limits of it, planting beds. He's ceased work. It's not a finished product at this time because he did at least respected Mr. Guillard's request that put the brakes on. So the other lawn improvements and whatnot haven't been executed in the intervening months. What we want to do is get this into compliance. You certainly have Mr. Queenberg and ours attention with the enforcement order. We know that we've been slow to respond, but we want to resolve this. And there is nothing extremely egregious with regards to performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act. It wasn't approved. The commission did not have the benefit of approving and reviewing this, but from my experience, there's nothing that's not in congruence with the conventional performance standards of the act and protecting the statutory interest. Steve Brook is here. It's a perennial stream, 25-foot. The BVW that was approved is in green here. This seems to be I know it's the approved line, but as far as I've been at this for 33 years, and I couldn't find hydric soils in here, and there's a 3-foot grade. This was ignored or wasn't adhered to in the site work, but I didn't. I argued in there and was expecting to find some hydric soils, and it doesn't seem like it was initially hydric. What we want to do, we proposed to Mr. Aguirre to file an extension of the order conditions and then amend it to conform. He doesn't think that's just because DEP has this 88.3 policy that says we don't want 2 orders of conditions or multiple orders. To us, it's academic whether we do an entirely new order or in supplement to this or an amended order. I think the amended order is slightly simpler, but we're not going to die on that hill. So we'd like to bring this into compliance. We'd like to vary from the original approval, but again, nothing that's out of keeping with other filings in the subdivision or just the Wetlands requirements in general. I re-evaluated this area, and GPSed it. This is just a informal survey, not a survey, but it's a GPS line. And this is what I found the current wetland boundary to be. We can reflag the entirety of the site if we're gonna do a new notice intent. Let you review it at your will, and then go forth from that, on that basis. What Mr. Greenberg would like to do is to retain this, but under an approved context as opposed to a unapproved context, and put a permanent fence that would, opaque or closed fence that would separate the buffer zone in the backland from the recreation, the usable yard to be associated with the home. Kenny, anything that I'm missing in terms of history? And this is just a, got the plan overlay, this might be a little more clarity. Fieldstone Drive, number 221, I just highlighted this as the offending portion of the project, the non-approved project, and then for context, the BVW approved, and the BVW, we didn't re-examine this, although we certainly willing to do that. At that time, when I visited the property with Mr. Queenberg, my knee was a little messed up, and it's somewhat better now, but so I didn't reflag the, this, just parenthetically, you can see all these rocks, and I don't know much about the Highland or what the farm was here. I did work contemporaneous when this was still open space across the street on some vernal pool work, probably 10 or 12 or more years ago in the area, but I never really examined this. But this looks like to me like whoever the farmer was, this is where they pushed the rocks and the whatever they didn't want to have in the agricultural works. Because you can see these aberrant rocks are not, these are not naturally occurring. You don't see them here. And so it has, in the vegetation, it has a signature of a place that's been disturbed, farm dump kind of habitat. We do want to fence this off. There's our existing vinyl fence here. There's a temporary kind of cow type fence here, just so that Mr. Queenberg can let his dog out and not have him disappear up the Route 24. But we would like to memorialize that in a subsequent plan and get an approval and close this out and get it off of Dan's desk and out of Mr. Queenberg's and the family's concerns. And that's our intent. We appreciate, we know that you meet monthly, and I asked Dan to just put us in for an informational basis. We know this is not a decision process today, but we just wanted to get it out there so that we could be prepared for July meeting, ideally, if we can do that. Any, or Paul, anything that I'm shorting on this?
I know the process wasn't done correctly, and I apologize. I've lived in Freetown for the past 30 years, and I honestly didn't know that for flat work, I needed to get an NOI or any permission. That's honestly what happened. And there was some miscommunication, and at the time, with COVID, it took so long to get a scientist, to get an engineer, and the phone calls kept going back and forth, and it looked like I was running from the problem, but I wasn't. I haven't finished anything. I did nothing more to the backyard until we're here today trying to get everything resolved.
Okay. Any questions?
Paul?
No one else in the audience for this?
We're just happy the process is moving forward.
As are we.
Get it off everybody's plate, right?
We're not gonna run, it's no escape. We need to face this and deal with it.
Yeah, so, I mean, when the initial letter went out, the informal letter, the commission understands what's a permittable activity and what's not. So this wasn't an enforcement order where somebody called and complained. We went out for a certificate of compliance.
Yeah.
And it was determined at that point that work had taken place. So the request was file for what you've got. And then we hadn't received any correspondence, so then we take it to the next level of a formal enforcement order. No response. So the next step would be a new enforcement order that says take it all out. No response until we just heard back from you. So we are thankful that we are getting the ball rolling again on whatever the commission asks you to submit, whether a new notice of intent or an amended. Just make sure we've covered everything that's out there, going to take place out there. If we're going to make some assertion with regards to the old wetlands line, so When the commission approved the wetlands line initially, not every linear foot of BVW
Subdivision,
gets
yeah.
soils. So if you can make the representation that it's not a wetland, or a good faith effort of, okay, if we allow this to happen, we do have other locations on the site that we could maybe restore wetland, just so that even if we don't get into, is it a wetland, is it not a wetland, just, let's just resolve it. If it's 50 square feet, restore 50 square feet somewhere else that you can hide it on the same wetland, and let the commission act on that.
We're certainly, I think we're on the same
I
plane.
think we all understand.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming, I appreciate that.
So, I would ask, I don't know if we can ask the commission, you can't have a vote, but, should we file a new notice, or should we extend?
I mean, you
the
can
amendment?
poll the commission with how they want to proceed. If the work is to be expanded beyond the approved limit of work, it should probably be a new order of conditions. But again, I'm not sure with, like, for instance, if you wanted to propose fencing in that cleared area for the dogs or whatever else, is that beyond the limit of work? It is what I would, want a new filing for, but.
And help me understand, because if we let this one expire, or I don't, or maybe we extend it just to keep it alive, but the new order should be comprehensive in anything from when this was a farm lot, I assume, because otherwise if we let an order.
Well, it was completely
expire-
vegetated before any construction took place.
Right. But just.
So it wasn't an active farm like the first phase of this subdivision. It was completely wooded.
Yeah, a farm at one time,
Yeah.
but not for probably 50 years.
So, one other caveat, which we haven't discussed, is that the existing order expires.
July
Next
30th.
month?
July 30th, yes.
July 30th. So, either way, regardless of what filing gets done, the new filing could incorporate everything that was permitted, or you would want to amend, which would theoretically being, well, no, I mean, if you just amended, would that give you an extension, or would it still expire?
The
So-
policy-
So we need an extension anyway,
I'm
if we're
familiar
going
with
to
it.
amend.
The policy explicitly
Yeah.
says you can't, you have to extend as an independent process as opposed to
Yep.
amend. So DP 88-4, whatever it is,
Okay.
says that you can't.
The amendment doesn't move the clock.
Yeah.
Right.
So we.
So you would
wanna do
wanna
both.
ask for an extension first.
Yeah.
Same meeting.
Yeah.
Extension
Mhm.
and amend.
But we would want to
Right.
get that to you physically and on record. July 30th is the Cinderella date, so we have 30.
Yeah, so I would hope you would file by the deadline to make for the July
Yeah,
meeting, which
that
is
was what we-
July.
yeah.
First?
The next meeting is July 1st,
With the
so it'd be
filing.
like a week and a half before that, so
Yeah.
June 20-something.
Well, I mean, we can submit the filing to the commission, I think as long as it's received by you, it doesn't have to be acted upon, just the applicant has to get it delivered to you, you can't wait till 28 days.
Okay.
Or else it's no.
Right,
no
but we
chance.
gotta make sure, butter notifications, legal ad, that all gets placed, so.
Yeah. And, I think it could, July 1st is the next meeting, if we're not fully prepared, I think the commission can still.
Act
extend
on
it.
the extension, yeah.
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 And then, it doesn't have to be, as long as the request is made
Right.
greater than 30 days, otherwise there's no recourse to
Understood.
extend it.
Yep.
So we'll, I wanna make sure I understand that we don't wanna burn any more clock time,
Yeah.
with erroneous directions. We will request an extended order of conditions, we'll revise a new plan for the amendment, requested amendment order, do the legal ads, abutter notification and so
Yep.
forth, and generate a plan that's comprehensive of
Mhm.
historic and,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
proposed activity.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thanks for putting us in here, I know
Yeah,
you
no worries.
had a busy agenda, and,
Very productive.
thanks so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Then we have general outstanding enforcement order updates. I think we have.
So I did receive an email from Attorney Levinson, who represents the property owners, that they did want to come in tonight to talk about Redwood Lane. So we can.
Good evening, members of the Conservation Committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the committee today. My name is Marcelo Lauro. I'm here with my brother Alex Lauro, the property owner. Here to discuss the recent concerns raised about the activities on the property located at 263 Redwood Lane. First and foremost, I fully understand the importance of adhering to the regulations and restrictions set forth to protect our valuable natural resources, and I appreciate the work of the zoning enforcement official and the Conservation Committee in this endeavor. The purpose of my presentation today is to clarify the actions taken on the property and to demonstrate our commitment to complying with the Declaration of Open Space, as well as the zoning variance granted on September 18th, 1997. We are actively working with professional consultants to ensure that all activities are conducted in compliance with the applicable regulations and to develop a comprehensive plan for the immediate permitting and restoration of any affected areas. Our goal is to resolve any discrepancies and to work together with the committee to ensure the best outcome for both the property and the surrounding environment. I'm here today to answer any questions you may have and to provide any additional information required. And I look forward to working together to address these concerns and find a solution that respects both the intended use of the property and the conservation goals of the community. So thank you again for your time and consideration today, and I have a plan to hand out.
So guys, first, thank you for coming in, we appreciate it, and I do want to acknowledge to the board that the owner and Marcel, who actually just lives down the street, they've been very responsive through this. I do understand it's very difficult to find consultants in these days. So I know they have been working because I've had consultants call and ask for information. So it is nice to see that this is moving along as well. So what's important to understand is that the Conservation Commission has only a small scope of the overall concerns that other agencies in the city has. So this is to do with the Wetlands Protection Act, wetland alterations, performance standards with regards to the wetland areas that run through here. So as far as the zoning decisions, all those things, the commission has no concern regarding those. This is strictly having to do with the activities that go on the site, but primarily the impact to the wetland area. So I can see that, that you have had some work starting in that direction. Specifically the wetland disturbance in the stream and whatever filling activity, took place through the construction of these paths. So I think this is a good first step. And I'm assuming that Zenith is putting together a proposal that takes this to the next step that the commission can actually act on.
Yep.
What was it initially cleared for? Because, I walked the area, and it's, I wouldn't characterize it as a gravel path. It's very wide in some places. And what was the purpose of the clearing in the first place?
For access to the property, we've had issues on the property, basically illegal hunting, illegal camping, illegal ATV access. So we wanted to be able to have better access to the property in order to oversee its use. We've had gunfire back there. So a lot of the work that we did was pre-existing paths already that we traveled on and put some gravel down in order for us to access it a little bit better. So I think that's the extent of some of the gravel that you're seeing there, is just so we don't erode it even further by driving vehicles on the natural ground.
You've got, I don't know what the appropriate terminology is for it, but you've got the generators and lights all over the place out there.
Yeah, we were using that in order to basically create access to the back
being that we worked during the day, this
Okay.
wasn't a construction project, so we did it
Right.
after hours.
Okay.
So it was just for after-hour work.
Are they still out there?
We are not, no, we stopped, once we, received the cease and desist.
I mean, the
off.
lighting?
No,
No.
everything's been pulled off. We have
Everything's been
nothing
pulled
there,
off. Okay.
Yeah. There is just a backhoe there, but that was mainly there for,
Yeah, it's-
personal use.
Mhm.
Yep.
Now, when do you think you'll have the plan ready for us?
So right now, I think we're at the point of, we stopped. We're not trying, the goal was to access the back of the property, and I don't think that's the goal anymore, being that we did, fortunately, someone called at the right time once we hit wetlands. We weren't looking at that like it was, major impact until, it was called. That's when we did the survey, and fortunately, we could have impacted more if it wasn't called on, so this could have been even more of a mess. So we're no longer trying to, get to the back of the property, being that we do have a significant portion of land here. We're basically trying to stop, remediate, work with you guys to kind of like, fix the problem here.
I think what the chairman was asking for, as far as the consultant working.
Yeah.
Where are you in the process?
so-
When do you think they'll be submitting?
So the thing is, the submittal, that's why we're here. We're looking for what you guys are looking to get from us. They provided this as of right now, to what we thought we'd have to propose to you guys, showing the impact of what we've done, So now we're wondering how we're moving forward from this.
So what was requested is that they file a notice of intent, which is
Yes.
the permit that gets submitted here for them to review, that shows what the alterations were.
Yep.
How it's being removed, how you're restoring the area.
Okay.
It should show topography,
Uh-huh.
so we show gravel path here.
Yeah.
But I think there was some filling in the side slopes.
Okay.
Into the wetland areas that,
Mhm.
it's not just edge of gravel and then vertical, right?
Yeah.
So there's some filling that took place.
Okay.
So there should be a plan that deals with, what happens from the jurisdictional area,
Uh-huh.
which is 100 feet, well, it's labeled stream, now whether that's intermittent or perennial, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But your wetlands consultant should be able to tell us that, so it's either, whatever the distance is off of that for resource areas, we're not so concerned with what's happening
Uh-huh.
outside of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. But if there were wetland alterations that took place, then that area needs to be restored.
Okay.
And that's what they'll be able to provide.
Which is the wetland
Yeah.
specialist.
So
'Cause
you can have, are you dealing with, who are you dealing with
So
at
the
at
wetland
Zenith?
specialist is Steve Chimmel out of Carver, Mass.
Yep, but
And-
as far as at Zenith, are you dealing with Jamie Bissonette or somebody else?
I think it was, actually, hold on one second.
Bob Forbes, I know there's a few
I
of them
think it
there.
was Bob,
Was it
actually.
Bob? Okay.
That sounds familiar.
Whoever it is, you can have them call me and I can explain to them what the commission's gonna be looking at.
What would be helpful as well is the,
John, I'm sorry, I just cut you off. It
Okay.
was John, I'm dealing with John O'Malley.
what would be helpful to me is if we could put the dimensions, the existing dimensions of the clearing that took place. 'Cause there's substantial, so if you could have that dimension so we know what we're starting with, and then what it's gonna look like when you complete the restoration work.
Okay.
Because there are other downstream interests that have an eye on this too, so you're
Okay.
talking about Buzzards Bay Coalition and places like that,
Alright.
so. And Westport River Watershed Alliance, because it's a direct tributary to Bread and Cheese Brook and all that other stuff, so. I know that they might be looking for information as well, so.
Okay.
But if you could dimension what's presently there so that we know the scope and what would be left. So I believe the deed restriction says walking path, correct?
Yeah, it says paths.
Paths. So
Yeah.
what is a walking path? And, what's out there
Yeah.
now is obviously not a walking path. So we need to know what you're starting with, what the alteration, the dimensions of the alteration, and what you're gonna end up with as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Any other questions from the board?
So the lights and generator have been removed along the road?
Yeah, all the equipment's been
Mhm.
taken off, yep.
And you said the path initially was just built to get to the back of the property?
Correct.
So, I mean, I'm looking at this though, why does it looks like it tees off at some point, right? Isn't that what it does there?
The second page is a zoom in, but
Yeah.
where are you,
Yeah,
the first page?
It tees off, I'm just,
I just asked this because if it was, I'm not saying that's not what it was used for, but you would think that if it was a path to get to the back of the property, it would be a linear path where it wouldn't tee off or kind of loop the way it's looping around here.
I mean, it's, a lot of these access paths were pre-existing to the property
No, no,
where
I
we
understand
travel.
that, and you said that initially you created the path based on what was there before.
Yeah.
But looking at the second page here, one can't help but think that it loops around, so I'm wondering if there was, you know, was it built for ATVs, was it built for all, you know, any kind of vehicles like that? 'Cause I don't know, I'm not an expert on paths or racing or ATVs,
Yeah.
but that's what it looks like to me on the second page.
There was an abundance of riding prior to even being there, so it's
Yeah.
always been a dirt bike track, and there's a path leading to Copacut.
Yeah, it crosses
You know,
the
you
city
could
of Fall
actually
River
meet-
property.
You could ride to Copacut from this land.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, regardless, I'm glad that you guys are here in front of us and taking responsibility and you're restoring it, so thank you for that.
Yeah. All
I
right.
have
Satisfied?
nothing else.
All right, thanks for coming in.
all right.
Thank you, gentlemen, for
Thanks
coming
very
in.
much.
And then the next update would just be, we did receive correspondence from the landowner and consultant for that Barton Bronson Street one. Greg Nicholas has been working on that with them, and they said that they would be, should have everything in for the next meeting. They have acknowledged that the wetland is basically right to the edge of the pavement, that they need to take the fill out, need to restore it. At first, I think they had some delusions of grandeur that they'd be able to fill some wetlands to build a house, but I think all parties have come to the realization that that's not going to happen, so.
Well, I don't know how you could get, I don't know how you could get that impression
speak-
being out there and.
I did speak very candidly with a consultant who I know well, and he's 100% on board and has advised his client to what's going to be required, so he's putting that together. That's all.
All righty, can I have a motion for approval of the minutes from May 3rd?
Motion to approve minutes?
Seconded?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
No public input. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All righty.
Thank you all.
Thank you.